I'm a very firm believer in that they're terrible. And I will say that I've tried kind of the variants of hot Cheetos, hot Doritos, Takis, maybe like once each, because they just never call to me. And I'm a huge fan of spicy food. My family is Mexican. We enjoy spice. I would say most of my family members do enjoy it, but especially after seeing how many kids it makes sick, it's like another kind of, it adds like a distaste to me in general. And so we know that it has increased the risk of emergency room visits, but I wanted to kind of give you guys also more of the background as to why, so that hopefully you could share it with your friends. And honestly, like the big, what's the word I wanted to use? See, this is what I'm talking about, word loss. Point of this talk would be everything is good in moderation. And I would say especially having these is trying to limit yourself, but it's so easy to just keep digging into a bag and like one of the big bags. So I'm not trying to tell anybody to stop eating them, just keep that in mind when you are, because there are addictive qualities to that, and I'll get into that in a second. If you were to ask Google, like, are hot Cheetos or are Takis good for you? They now have like an AI answer for you, and they'll say like friend or foe, and it's pretty obvious in terms of like whether it's a healthy snack to have. So some of the obvious things are that it's lacking nutrients, so there's just a ton of calories, fats, carbs, and sodium. And I was actually kind of surprised. Takis in particular have 390 milligrams of sodium per 1 ounce serving, and that's like about 11 chips, which are very quickly eaten, right? And obviously they're super ultra processed and refined. And so having these on a regular basis, like once or twice, even 3 times a week, are going to increase your risk of heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. So again, moderation is key. And then the big thing that I want to focus on is that digestive irritation. So anything spicy is going to potentially cause irritation to our lining, especially if you have it excessively. And one of the most common things that we see is gastritis, which is basically just inflammation of the stomach, which can come out as belly pain, nausea, and then vomiting. And so I wanted to expand a little bit on that digestive irritation. And so that comes directly from something called capsaicin. Have you guys ever heard of capsaicin? It's specifically what will trigger your taste buds and then the lining in your digestive tract to react to spiciness. And so it actually is what causes that like fiery heat sensation that's going to trigger the same nerves in our body as fire. So if you imagine like putting your hand closer to fire, the closer you get, the more your body feels heat, and then eventually can even start to char, like not char, but burn if you put it close enough. And so that similar reaction happens in our mouth, in our esophagus, in our stomach, and then a little bit in our small intestine. And so the more you have, the more intense the sensation gets. And so you don't just taste spicy food because of capsaicin, but you also literally feel it like you would fire. And so this is what's going to cause that belly pain. And interestingly, it actually is what's called a vasoconstrictor. And so it's going to constrict our blood vessels, which I don't know if you guys heard of the 1 chip challenge that went around not too long ago. There was a 14-year-old high school football player who, like many of his friends, decided to do the 1 chip challenge that was put on by Pocky, I believe. And it's meant for adults. Like the labeling specifically said only to be consumed by adults. Make sure that you don't have any heart issues or digestive issues. But who follows that when you're grocery shopping or going to like the local, I want to say bodega because I'm from New York, or lived in New York, the local corner store. And one of his friends mentioned that when he did the 1 chip challenge, he just went straight from his high school to a block away to the corner store, bought it, and they think that the kiddo died of what ended up being a stroke because the vasculature in his brain, the blood vessels in his brain, constricted from the capsaicin because it was just so spicy. And so there was one other documentation of another teenager a few years ago who had a similar episode of after eating a super spicy, I think he had a Carolina Reaper, who ended up having a stroke as well. And so we don't see strokes like that in kids their age too typically. And so they can't 100% prove it was because of the capsaicin, but because we know that capsaicin is a vasoconstrictor or constricts our blood vessels, that's not going to be too good for the brain if you do it in huge amounts, which that one chip challenge had. It also interestingly speeds up our digestion, the capsaicin, and so what ends up happening is you're going to have that spicy food go through your intestines even faster than the stomach could process or the intestines could process, and so you're going to end up having like mucus in your bowels, and something that I saw repeatedly was it doesn't feel good going in, and it feels terrible coming out. So I don't know if you guys have ever had such a spicy meal once that when you went to the bathroom and had a bowel movement, you could actually feel it burning coming out. That we've seen that happen a lot, and especially kids now, because they're having whole bags of Takis that it feels spicy going in, spicy going out. We've also seen that it can cause chest pain, headaches, trigger migraines, again because it's constricting blood vessels, and lead to violent vomiting. Some of the reasons we've seen more kids end up in the emergency room is because they also have red poop, and it looks a lot like blood, but it's actually just the red food poisoning, or not food poisoning, the red food coloring that gives these chips their bright, vibrant colors. And so really hard to tell once it's in the toilet that it's actually not blood, and then we check it in the emergency room and thankfully confirm most of the time it's not, but it's gonna be a hefty fee to pay or copay to pay to go to the emergency room to find out that it's just food coloring. And then again, the stomach pain and gastritis is leading emergency room visits, or at least doctor visits. And again, one of the interesting things about capsaicin is that it does have an addictive quality to it. So the secret is that it tricks the brain into thinking or into releasing endorphins and dopamine. And those are two chemicals that, especially if you haven't heard of them before, you're going to hear about them a lot in life because they're what our happy hormones are, or our hormones that kind of cause us to have good energy and sort of part of our flight and fight response. And so if it's releasing endorphins to kind of act as a natural pain or stress reliever and associates your body with pleasure, it's almost like a sense of euphoria after you take it. Even though it's spicy, you do get like this release in body of like, kind of like you would many drugs, unfortunately. And so that's why it's just so addictive. You can't stop no matter how much your mouth is on fire. And so that combination makes it, the combination of the endorphin and dopamine make it such a pleasurable sensation. And like many drugs, your body builds a tolerance to it, so you're still craving that euphoric feeling, and so you're gonna keep wanting to eat more, so you get that high. So you need to eat a bigger bag of chips next time in order to reach that high, but that also will then make you have all those tummy issues. I think that is the big thing. Have any of you guys tried the one chip challenge?
No. The funny thing is that I was at a charity event at my son's high school, and it was one of the teachers who, I don't know how much he paid as a charity donation to do the one chip challenge.
Yeah.
It was pretty scary.
Yeah.
You know, I think he's done it before, but he's this big hefty guy who's like an ex-football player, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about it, it probably doesn't make great sense to have that as a charity event at a kid's school, right?
Well, that's the thing. It's like it was talking about why spicy food is part of, like, it's